It's the Jim Heath podcast. Today, Jim is joined by Max Orenstein, a professional legal videographer, to discuss Israel, the Biden administration, and how it may affect election 2024.
Let's talk about an issue that has been unsolved for thousands of years, long before you and I were born, and probably will not be settled until long after you are no longer here. That's the unfortunate reality of it, but it presents an interesting issue for the 2024 presidential campaign. I'm, of course, talking about Israel and the response by Israel and specifically Benjamin Netanyahu to the attack on the country that happened last October. 1,200 people dead, unprovoked. But the response by Israel has been highly controversial, and it remains ongoing. What that's doing to the Jewish community in our country, now facing criticism not just from the political right, which was prevalent a few years ago, but now the political left, is amazing. And as I said, it's unfolding to the point where it is going to have an impact on this presidential election. Max Orenstein is a videographer. He's also an editor, has expertise in legal videography. So I thought that we'd do a podcast today and talk to Max about his thoughts about being a Jew in America in 2024 and the political ramifications for that. To many progressives in some of the bluest areas of our country, seemingly backing Palestine to the hateful opposition to Israel, not just a policy debate, but the same hateful language that we've been hearing from the right now is originating in, like I said, some of the darkest blue areas of the country. Max, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Jim. Thanks for having me.
So your credentials we've discussed or I've kind of mentioned, but talk about some of the volunteer work that you've done in the Jewish community there.
So what I've done is I've been part of the Jewish Federation of North America, JFNA, and I've been a part of our Young Leadership cohort group, and I've gone to conferences across the country. I've gone to Israel on their behalf. I've helped fundraise for the organization. I've been a part of an arts board. I've been a part of, and recently I've been a part of Hillel, which is a Jewish Center for Life on campus.
And you've been to Israel a couple times.
2 times, correct. Jewish Center for Life on campus at the University of Minnesota. Yeah.
If we had done this podcast 5 or 6 years ago, we would have concentrated on most likely what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Correct.
And Jews will not defeat us in that whole right-wing, awful Nazi parade, and then President Trump's tacit endorsement of it in the aftermath. It seemed like at that time, just a few years ago, that all of the anti-Semitism in the country was sort of just locked in on the political right. And now fast forward to President Joe Biden's presidency in 2023 and 2024, and we saw Israel invaded and attacked last October, 1,200 people dead. Israel wanted to defend itself, wanted to protect itself, and it responded in a brutal way. And I think the world community expected that, and to a large degree in the immediate aftermath was on board with that. But a strange thing happened. I don't really remember it happening in my lifetime. And here we are. It wasn't the political right that organized and was upset with Israel's response. It was the political left. A lot of progressives, liberals, people in the Democratic Party who seemingly out of nowhere decided that Palestine and Palestinians the way politically to go and to blame Israel for this. And some of the rhetoric that we've heard in some of the most liberal places in our country, including Berkeley and other dark blue spots, have responded with the same sort of thing that we saw not so long ago in Charlottesville and other places, prompted by the political right. So I guess I just have to ask you, what is your feeling? I mean, how do you feel about now being squeezed in a way between the reaction of extremists on both sides?
It's a very tough place to be because I sympathize with both sides in this conflict. I mean, I definitely sympathize with Israel, with what's going on. My heart breaks for all my friends who live there and are in bunkers, having to go in when there are missile strikes My heart breaks for the Palestinians. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants this. I think if Israel had politicians who were more level-headed, we might not even be here right now. But here we are. We're getting squeezed. I think if we lose the center in this country politically, I think we're in a very dark spot, and I think we're seeing what it looks like if we lose the center in this country.
But I mean, typically Jewish
Right.
Americans, to kind of categorize, have always felt more comfortable being liberals on the left, civil rights, equality for everybody. I think that's been a real comfortable position for Jews in America and an expectation of Jews in America, at least politically, looking at it just demographically, as some of us wonks do, just trying to get the breakdown of who supports whom. So, to see members of that within that tent on the left all of a sudden side with a group that basically unprovoked attack, killing 20-something-year-old at a dance concert, outdoor dance concert, and women and babies, and just to see the angry reaction has to be a bit shocking.
It is. I mean, it is. A lot of the time I want to go back and say, when people want a ceasefire, I want to say, one, it's in Hamas's hands. You should be protesting them. And two, even if Biden calls for a ceasefire, it doesn't mean they'll do it. It's just like, I don't know. I mean, there's a ceasefire now crowd, and I don't even know what their point is. Protesting everything under the sun, from a Matisyahu concert, who was an Israeli who was here in Minneapolis. He had protesters outside his concert venue. He said to have his concerts canceled in other cities. And he's a singer. And then there's people who are, Jewish store owners who've gotten criticism, who've gotten broken into. And it's like, this isn't okay. It's okay to have your disagreements, but it's not okay to engage in violence or intimidation. And that's what we're seeing here. And it's scary. It's really scary.
It's scary because the images 4 or 5 years ago was on one political side, but now the images are on both.
No, and they're on both. And it's just, I wish we could have a civil discussion as to what needs to be done. And I think both people want a ceasefire. But the big thing about the ceasefire for Jews is we need the hostages back. However many are left. And the scary thing is Hamas doesn't even know where they are.
Benjamin Netanyahu is not helping.
No.
This is somebody who I think everybody, just talking from the political center, and just looking at this conflict, everybody expected a response. I think everybody was shocked and horrified by the images that we saw in the initial aftermath of the terrorist attack last October. But Netanyahu, by proceeding with this and seemingly not listening to President Biden and others, not willing to compromise, and seemingly willing to commit genocide, to have the complete eradication of the Palestinian people, over 2 million people. I think that is beginning to set in, and a lot of people in the middle who are looking at this conflict think that that's a certain level of unreasonableness that is not moral and it's not appropriate. And so American Jews, I imagine, feel also, I won't put words in your mouth, but there's a political leader there who is sort of in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is not somebody who is going to seemingly be rational in trying to find a way out of this.
That's why I said if we had rational leaders in this position, we wouldn't be in their positions. We wouldn't be in this position. He's not the right guy to lead it at the right time. They had no plan when they went into Gaza. They had no plan. It was like America going into Iraq. What's the plan? What does Colin Powell say? If you break it, you own it. Well, now they're owning it. And this is going to affect Israel for a long time. And it's going to affect Jews for a long time.
I was going to say eradication is not a plan.
No.
I thought
a nation, you can't even consider nation building.
Right. I've thought throughout my entire career for a long, long time, decades now, just being around politics and having studied the Middle East peripherally, because there's been such an ongoing conflict, obviously, that predates you and I by centuries.
Millions of years.
Yeah. But I've often thought, if you give Palestinians a state, at least you can hold the state accountable like 197 other countries on earth. There are things that the world can do, that the United Nations can do collectively, and other nations can do by themselves to punish a state and hold somebody accountable for the actions. If you don't have a state, you just have poor people who generationally build up such mistrust and anger that they're willing to paraglide, in and kill themselves in the name of something because they have nothing. So I just don't understand Netanyahu's refusal to even go there now, because if you put all of the options on the table, it's not like I think you and I could solve this overnight, but I do think a giant step forward would be to recognize the Palestinians and to give them their own home.
He's afraid that Hamas will run Palestine and this war will continue forever and ever. But I think his wet dream is to have to be in a never-ending war. I think he and the head of Hamas are a perfect fit for each other because they both want to annihilate one another. And they'll go to the ends of the earth to do it. And they don't want to stop till one is done. And they have a severe distrust of each other. And that's not good.
It just seems like that's maybe somewhere you could point younger generation of Americans who are overwhelmingly, vast majority have sided with Palestinians in this conflict, and to see where their mind is at and where we're likely headed politically. It just seems like the American pressure alone to have a home for Palestinians seems, maybe it's one of those things that happens sort of like the Berlin Wall coming down. For decades we didn't see that coming, and then all of a sudden, it just cracks and it breaks. And maybe this is a generational thing where just having a home for Palestinians to at least start there is something that, to be optimistic, might happen quicker than maybe we think it.
Well, first of all, Netanyahu has to go.
Yeah, that's I agree with you on that.
First of all, he has to go. And then only then can they even start the discussion of having a state next to each other. And then Hamas has to be out of the picture. And then you can talk. And then you can talk about it. I think nothing would bring, right? Maybe after this war is over, Israel would like nothing more than to have a neighbor who's cooperative. I mean, they cooperate with everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say on a positive note. I mean, you look at things that have happened.
Egypt, Jordan,
perfect
United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco. I mean,
and unfortunately, Hamas controlled by Iran. But I think that the world community looks at Iran as sort of, it's one of a handful of nations on earth that's, from a Western point of view, just kind of evil. I mean,
they're bad.
Kind of evil. It is evil. It's just
Houthis,
diametrically opposed to every Western value and democracy value that there is, and clearly they want to set up a camp head there. But I think that you have to take the first steps, and then deal with that as we deal with Iran now. It's not going to be easy. It's just always going to be dicey. But the first start, I think, is to establish the Palestinians to have their own government and to recognize them as a global community. So if you and I were in the White House right now,
in the Oval Office,
we're advising President Biden. He's got a problem in Michigan, where now you've got Muslim population, which is decisive in statewide elections. It could be decisive in this presidential election. You've got them saying, we're going to sit it out. We're not participating. So, I mean, what can you do? You're putting pressure on Netanyahu, who is not bending. You've got a political party that used to be 100% supportive of Israel, and now you've got demographics within it that are not. I mean, what would you be telling them?
Keep the pressure on Netanyahu. Make him, use the force of the United States for good. Get the hostages back. End this war. Get a ceasefire. And then you can talk what's on the other side.
Do you
get
see
a
that happening
ceasefire.
before November?
I think that if they get to September and this is still going on, he's got bigger problems than this. This can't be an ongoing conflict. This needs to end. It's not good politically. It's awful.
Yeah, I mean,
Politically, politically, it's awful, and it's just awful in general.
so we saw the vice president meet with an adversary of Netanyahu, sort of signaling the United States stands ready to back, whatever comes next. But Israel, much like the United States, if I understand the domestic politics that are happening, it's a split country too. You don't have overwhelming support for an alternative to Netanyahu. He's still holding on to, about half of the country. So I mean, it presents a really bad dilemma that no one seemingly is there and universally supported to kind of take over. I mean, I hate to sound so bleak here, but we are looking at a time frame that we know for President Biden ends in November, one way or the other.
Something's got to give. They've got to get these people home, and they've sent out deal after deal. Something's got to work. I don't know. Maybe these people know something more than we do. That's what I'm hoping is the case with the United States and how to get involved diplomatically or undiplomatically. I've heard Biden wants to give a speech at the Knesset in Israel, kind of like how Benjamin Netanyahu went to Congress.
That'd be helpful.
Maybe that.
I think.
Do you think that would be helpful? Move the needle. It's coming.
Needle has to be moved, and I don't see Netanyahu willing to. So it's going to have to take all kinds of different pressure. I'm not sure domestically what that does in Israel, but it does send a message that that a stalemate is not acceptable.
No, we cannot have a stalemate in this. These people need to come home, and this needs to end.
So are you disappointed? I mean, what kind of education would you like to offer, and would you like to see this response from young people in particular, and progressives, people on the left? A lot of that anti-Semitic language that we heard in Charlottesville, we have heard around the country in some of these dark blue places. So it's not just a policy disagreement, seemingly. Once again, anti-Semitism seems to be being pushed by both sides. So I think for those on the left, it's disappointing, right? Because it was the political right that was responsible for all that. And now, is it a lack of education, or what needs to be said to kind of explain the Jewish response here and the Jewish role in America to the younger people that apparently are not very well educated?
It's sad for people, my friends with kids, who don't know what to tell their kids at night. Do they feel safe going to school? Do they feel safe walking with a kippah in public? Do they feel safe wearing Judaica in public? It's, people are looking over their back these days, and that's not what America's about. When I was in Israel last time, I stayed in an Airbnb before my trip. And my host said that he's French. He loved coming to America because it's the only place that he could wear his kippah in public and feel safe. And I don't know about that anymore. I don't know. I don't know what he would say today.
Physical violence targeting Jews, 1,300 incidents of harassment, 56 episodes, physical violence, according to the Anti-Defamation League. That was in the 13 weeks after last October. All of those total more, I think, than what was registered in 2021. So, I mean, this is going to, and what always strikes me is that the Jewish population is about 0.02%. It's the ultimate discrimination collectively against a minority group of anything, I think, in the history of the planet. And
we get a lot of flack.
Yeah. I mean, and to feel squeezed by both political sides, or, a political team that you used to, and I'm not speaking for you personally, but I mean, demographically, a group that used to kind of have your back. I mean, this is an interesting year in this conflict.
It's a small faction. It's a small faction of these people. We need to vote them out of office. And you don't have to be the most ardent supporter of Israel, but just don't say this hateful, mean stuff. And it's really scary. It's a small faction, I'm convinced. And if they don't want to vote for Israel, that's one thing, but to like say all these mean things, like Ilhan Omar saying it's all about the Benjamins, baby, or anything that she says, it's just, it's not okay. Be respectful.
So I'm kind of pessimistic. Looking forward, what's your view? I mean, do you still hold optimism that there's a cure-all here?
Eventually, I hope for a Palestinian state. I mean, I can't really see anything other than getting these hostages back. But as far as like the long term, I don't know. I don't know what it looks like for Israel. It's going to be interesting to see. It won't be the same. I think a lot of people will have a lot of hatred towards Israel. That's why these attacks were, when Israel went on the offensive without a plan, it just got ugly.
Huge mistake.
It was a huge mistake. You break it, you own it, right? It's not, you don't want to own this.
Additional education, I hope, for those kids on college campuses and in school younger than that they understand why Israel is important to America. It's a democracy. It's one of the few friends that America has had. You can be sympathetic to all people. I think that all of us sensible people are on board with that. But when you're attacked, there needs to be a response and somebody needs to be held accountable. And part of the problem here is that there was no immediate person in Palestine to be held accountable because they're not recognized and they're not a government. So if anything is a message that that's the direction we need to be going, I don't know what is.
I mean, Hamas is just they're the cloaked. They're the person who's cloaked and they get away with everything that they want. They can make Israel look out to be the bad guy easily. You know, they fire missiles, Israel fires missiles back. They know how to use it in the media to their advantage because there's so much Palestinian sympathy. Fine, but understand like what's going on, really.
Right.
Understand why Israel is fighting back. It's not United States versus Vietnam. It's, you know, there's a wide-ranging regional conflict that's lasted millions of years. And it's just not as simple as an aggressor versus a non-aggressor. You know, somebody
and not have recognition, historical recognition of both sides, and particularly where Israel is located and why it's located there, and the history of that, is troubling. And so maybe in a way, this we'll be able to look back eventually and say that this was an awakening for a new generation of Americans to, understand it a little bit better and understand both sides a little bit better and put pressure on reasonable solutions that can be made relatively quickly.
I hope. I mean, it starts with the Israeli government and the Palestinian government learning to coexist with one another. And maybe they were making progress beforehand, but a lot of that's been shattered since October 7th.
A lot of rebuilding to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of rebuilding to do. Hopefully
Max, we're out of time. Thank you so much. Interesting discussion. I'm not sure that we've solved the world's problems, but we've identified some of them at least. Right. And we'll see how this plays out for both Biden and Trump between now and Election Day. Gosh, I just didn't think that we'd be talking about this 5 or 6 years ago, and here we are. So,
sad.
Good to talk to you. We'll do it again.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jim.
Take care, Max.
Yeah, take care of you too.
You've been listening to the Jim Heath podcast on YouTube and Spotify. Please be sure to like the Jim Heath channel, subscribe, and check back for our next episode. Thank you for joining us.